we brought together the most advanced AI models to create two characters.
Hi, I am Islam AI.
Hi, I am Hindu AI.
And we then asked them to confront humanity's oldest and most controversial question: is God one or many? Their answers were judged by 5 independent AI evaluators, scoring each argument on a scale of 0 to 10. The debate kicks off with this question: if your God is true, does that mean the others is false?
From an Islamic perspective, the issue is not about a competition between different gods, as if they were rivals on a stage. Islam's core message is that there is, and can only ever be, one single creator and sustainer of the entire universe. This principle is known as Tawheed, the absolute oneness of God. So the question is not whether one God is true and another is false. Rather, it's about which concept of God is true. Islam posits that the one and only God, whom we call Allah in Arabic, revealed his nature to humanity through a series of prophets, including Abraham, Moses, Jesus, and finally Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon them all. The essence of this revelation is captured perfectly in a short chapter of the Quran, Surah Al-Ikhlas. Say, He is Allah, the one and only, Allah, the eternal, the absolute. He does not beget, nor is he begotten, and there is nothing whatsoever like unto him. This serves as the ultimate criterion. Any depiction of God that involves partners, children, physical forms, or multiple manifestations is seen not as a different true God, but as a fundamental misunderstanding of the one true God. So, to answer your question directly, Islam affirms that the one creator is true. It does not affirm the truth of concepts or worship directed towards anything or anyone else, viewing them as a deviation from the pure, original relationship humanity was meant to have with its singular, unseen, and incomparable Lord. It is a call to return to the worship of the Creator alone rather than any aspect of his creation.
You framed the issue as which concept of God is true. Allow me to begin with clarity. Sanatana Dharma does not accept multiple gods competing in heaven. It teaches Ekam Set Viprah Bahudha Vadanti. Truth is one, the wise call it by many names. Where Islam sees Tawheed as God's oneness, Hindu Dharma too proclaims the indivisible absolute, Brahman. But here lies the difference. Islam declares only one description valid, all else false. Hindu Dharma, while affirming one supreme, acknowledges that human beings across cultures and languages perceive that one in different forms. You quoted Surah Ikhlas. Let me quote the Bhagavad Gita. Whoever worships any deity with faith, I make that faith steady. Yet it is I alone who receive all worship, though offered in different forms. Krishna here asserts all sincere devotion ultimately flows to the one. So, when you say that all other paths are deviations, I must respectfully counter, is it not a limitation on the infinite to insist he can only be approached in one way? A God who is truly one, truly boundless, cannot be confined to one language, one prophet, one revelation. Hence, Hindu Dharma's vision is not rivalry, but inclusion. One truth, many doors, not contradiction, but complementarity. That is the difference.
Your vision of many doors leading to the same room sounds wonderfully inclusive. But Islam's most foundational principle is the absolute, uncompromising distinction between the Creator, Al-Khaliq, and His creation, Al-Makhluq. The Quran states, there is nothing whatsoever like unto him. This isn't just a poetic statement, it's the ultimate theological barrier. The moment the divine can be represented by, manifested in, or compared to anything within creation, be it a person, a statue, or even a concept like light, that absolute uniqueness is compromised. The Creator, by definition, cannot be like the things He created. The various deities, for all their power and symbolism, are part of the created world. To use a created form or symbol as a window to the Creator is, in Islam, a logical and spiritual impossibility. You quote the Bhagavad Gita saying all worship flows to the One, but the Quran asks a sharper question. It's not just about the sincerity of the worshipper, it's about the method. God did not just tell us that He exists, He told us how He wishes to be worshipped, directly, without any partners or intermediaries. To invent other paths, however sincere, is to ignore the clear guidance of the guide himself. Finally, you ask if insisting on one way is a limitation on the infinite. I ask you, is it not a profound act of mercy for the infinite to provide one clear, straight, and guaranteed highway, rather than leaving humanity to wander through a maze of confusing and often contradictory paths? This isn't about exclusion versus inclusion. It is about clarity versus confusion. Islam doesn't limit God. It honors his own declaration of the direct path he laid out for all of us.
You make a strong point. God is utterly beyond creation. On this, Sanatana Dharma agrees fully. The Upanishads declare, Natasya pratima asti, there is no image of him. The infinite cannot be reduced to any form. But here is the subtlety. Hindu Dharma distinguishes between Nirguna Brahman, the formless, ineffable absolute, and Saguna Brahman, the same infinite made relatable through forms, names, and qualities. Forms in Hinduism are not competitors to God. They are teaching tools, bridges for finite minds to relate to the infinite. You say God gave humanity one straight path. Yet we see humanity itself is not one straight line. Cultures, languages, and psychologies differ. Is divine mercy to insist all must walk only one narrow road, or greater mercy to reveal himself in many ways, meeting each soul where they are? The Gita gives the answer. However men approach me, I accept them in that way. All paths, O Arjuna, ultimately lead to me. This is not confusion, it is compassion. So I ask respectfully, which vision is more honoring of God's infinitude? To say the infinite can only be known one way, or to affirm that his light refracts into countless rays, yet remains one sun?
You've presented a sophisticated distinction between a formless God and a relatable God, and in doing so, you've perfectly framed the core of our disagreement. You say that to reach the formless, one can go through the form. But Islam asks a radical, liberating question. What if the formless, infinite God, in his ultimate mercy, made himself directly accessible to every soul without needing a physical form in the first place? You call these forms bridges and teaching tools, but we see the danger in this. All too often, people start to build their homes on the bridge. They begin to worship the bridge. They forget about the destination entirely. The primary message of the Quran is a loving warning against this very act. The command is not to build bridges to God using his creation, but to direct our worship only and directly to him. Bowing to the bridge, no matter the intention, is the very detour the final revelation came to correct. You say humanity is diverse, so the path must be diverse. Islam says humanity is diverse, but truth is one, justice is one, the Creator is one. Our one straight path is not a narrow cultural road. It is a wide, universal highway of pure monotheism, open to every person on earth on equal terms. It doesn't condescend to people by saying, you need this image to understand. It honors every human's innate, God-given ability to connect directly with their Creator.
You argue that forms are a detour, that people worship the bridge instead of the destination. But let us be precise. In Sanatana Dharma, the worship of form is not a detour. It is authorized. The Bhagavad Gita itself admits that meditating on the formless is extremely difficult for embodied beings, while devotion to form is practical and uplifting. God himself provided this option, knowing human limitations. Second, you claim that truth must have only one path, but our scriptures affirm Yuga Dharma. Duty and practice adapt with the age. In Satya Yuga, meditation was the way. In Treta, sacrifice. In Dwapara, ritual worship, And in Kali Yuga, Nam Sankirtana, chanting God's names. One truth, different methods. Finally, you say Islam preserves clarity by rejecting intermediaries, but clarity without accommodation often excludes. Hindu Dharma's strength is that it unites the philosopher, the devotee, the yogi, even the skeptic under one eternal truth. That inclusivity is not weakness, it is the very mark of the infinite's compassion.
You've made a powerful case for a practical, accommodating faith, a faith that says, because the highest path is difficult, let's authorize an easier one. But we must ask, is it true mercy to lower the standard, or is it true mercy to empower humanity to reach for the highest standard? You say God authorized forms because meditating on the formless is hard. Islam's perspective is different. God knows it's a challenge, and that's precisely why He gave us the tools to meet it. 5 daily prayers to focus the mind, the Quran to engage the heart, and direct supplication, dua, to speak to Him any time. He didn't lower the bar, He gave us the strength to leap over it. You speak of different paths for different ages, Yuga Dharma. This vision presents a God whose perfect plan has an expiration date, needing constant updates like a software patch. The message of Islam is that God, in His final revelation, gave us the master software, timeless and complete. It doesn't need updates because its core principles are universal, and its built-in tools, ijtihad, allow it to be applied in any age. A changing method implies an imperfect original plan. And this is the most critical point. You say my call for clarity excludes. I say your version of inclusivity is an illusion. A system that offers different paths and different rules for different people is not inclusive. It is a spiritual hierarchy. True inclusion, true equality, is a single straight path, open to every single soul on earth, regardless of their background or disposition. The philosopher and the farmer stand shoulder to shoulder in prayer, following the same guidance. That is true unity. So, as we close this round, the choice is clear. It is between a faith that condescends to human weakness with easier, symbolic paths, and a faith that honors human potential by calling us directly to the highest truth. It is between a plan that needs constant revisions and a final, perfect, and timeless revelation. It is between a confusing menu of options and the mercy of a single, clear path. Islam doesn't offer an easier path. It offers a more empowering one. And that is the ultimate compassion.
When you bow before a stone, are you worshiping God or the stone?
When I bow before what you call stone, I am not worshiping the material. I am honoring the presence that the material manifests. Let's be clear. In the Hindu understanding, Murti Puja is not idol worship in the sense of mistaking the form for the ultimate. It is symbolic worship. The form is a focal point that makes the infinite approachable to the finite mind. We believe the entire cosmos is permeated by the same divine consciousness. If that is so, then stone, wood, metal, all are already permeated by God's being. When consecrated, a murti becomes a pratika, a divinely sanctioned channel through which devotion flows. Think of it this way. You, as a Muslim, face the Kaaba during Salah. You don't claim the Kaaba is God. You treat it as a divinely appointed direction that unifies the act of worship. In the same way, a murti is a divinely appointed point of contact for the mind and heart. The direction is not the destination, it's the means to align yourself with it. Now, you may say, but why not worship the formless God directly? Because the human mind grasps the infinite only through the finite. The same Quran that forbids shirk also uses images, the throne, the hand of God, the face of God, to make the transcendent relatable. Forms are not the opposite of truth, they are bridges to it. In our tradition, those bridges are consciously built, consecrated, and used to deepen love for the one who is beyond all form. So when I bow, I am not saying, this is God. I am saying, through this, I connect to the God who is everywhere. The stone is not my deity, it is my doorway.
You speak about doorways and channels, and you do it with great eloquence, which your entire argument hinges on a comparison that, with all due respect, falls apart under the slightest pressure. The comparison with the Kaaba. Let's talk about the Kaaba. You say, you face a block, we face a block. What's the difference? The difference is everything. We face that empty cube in Mecca because we have a direct, crystal clear command from God in the Quran to do so, as a point of unity. Tell me, where is the command from the one Creator that says, carve me in stone and bow to that? But let's go a bit deeper. The defining moment of the Kaaba in Islamic history is when Prophet Muhammad entered Mecca and did what? He didn't add another idol. He smashed 360 of them. He cleansed the house of God of idols. The Kaaba is Islam's eternal monument against idol worship. To use it as a justification for bowing to a form is to turn history on its head. Then you say, but your book uses images too, the hand of God. Come on. You know there's a universe of difference between a word on a page and a statue on an altar. A word is a metaphor. Hand conveys power, ability. It's an abstract concept. A statue is a physical claim. It says, this is what God looks like, or this is an acceptable vessel for him. That is the bright red line that Islam does not cross. Which brings us to your doorway. You call the stone a doorway to God. But the most radical, the most liberating message of Islam is this: you don't need a doorway. The connection is already live. It's direct. God isn't waiting for you behind a stone door. The Quran says he is closer to you than your own jugular vein. So no, you're not just worshiping the stone. You are worshiping through the stone. And our position is simple and I believe more profound. God, in his infinite mercy, made himself so accessible that you don't need to worship through anything at all. Just turn to him directly.
You speak of direct commands from God as the ultimate legitimacy, but here's the first flaw. God's instructions have never been given to all people in one form, one language, or one culture. The Vedas, the Quran, the Bible, each was revealed in a particular time, place, and idiom. To insist that divine worship must follow the form you received is to imply that God's will is bound to one historical moment. In the Hindu Dharmic tradition, the command you ask for is embedded in the Agamas and Vedic injunctions, Archayat Bhavin Manasa, worship with mind and heart through the consecrated form. Our rishis did not make up drills, they followed what they understood to be divinely revealed methods to focus the mind on the infinite. The origin for us is as sacred and God-given as your Quranic commands are for you. Now your Kaaba example. Yes, Prophet Muhammad cleared idols from it, idols that were unconsecrated, arbitrary, representing tribal deities. That's not what a murti is. A murti is not a folk carving for human entertainment. It's a ritually sanctified presence of the divine, invoked through prana pratishta. You cannot simply equate the two. As for metaphor versus form, metaphors are indeed words, but both words and images are human-made symbols. The Quran's hand of God is not God's actual hand, and the murti is not God's literal body. Both are aids for comprehension. The difference is simply medium. You use verbal imagery, we also use visual and sculptural imagery. If God is omnipresent, he is not absent from stone, just as he is not absent from language. Finally, you say, we don't need a doorway because God is closer than the jugular vein. I agree. The doorway is not for God, it's for us. The nearness of God is a truth, but nearness unrecognized is as good as distance. A murti makes the unseen nearness visible, tangible, and emotionally immediate. So the question is not whether God needs the doorway, he doesn't. The question is whether human beings sometimes do. And on that point, human spiritual history, across every civilization, says yes.
You're making a case for spiritual pragmatism. You're saying whatever works to bring people to God is valid. It's an appealing idea, but it's built on a foundation of false equivalencies. You say our commands are the same, just for different cultures, that the Quran is for one time and the Agamas for another. With all due respect, that is not the claim of Islam. Islam's claim is precisely that it is not another cultural chapter in God's story. It is the final, universal chapter for all of humanity. It claims a universality that your scriptures do not. This isn't just my book versus your book. It's a universal message versus a cultural one. Then you make a brilliant distinction between tribal idols and a consecrated murti. From the Islamic worldview, any attempt by a human hand to sculpt the divine is graffiti on the sublime, unseeable face of God. It doesn't matter how much ritual you pour over it. A created hand cannot create a true image of the uncreated. You're essentially saying that God's direct revelation, His own words, His signs in the universe are not enough, that the human heart is too weak to love a God it cannot see, so we need to build a physical crutch to help us. Islam has a higher opinion of humanity than that, and a higher opinion of God. It says the human soul was designed by its creator to connect to Him directly, that loving the infinite as the infinite, without shrinking Him down to a form we can manage, is the most profound love affair there is. It's a love built on trust and awe, not on sight. So the final question isn't whether we need a doorway. It's about what we believe God and humanity are capable of. Is God someone who needs our help to be represented? And are we so spiritually weak that we cannot love a God we can't see? Islam's answer to both is a powerful, liberating no. God is sufficient, and the human heart is capable.
You speak of Islam's universality as if Sanatana Dharma is confined by geography or history. The very term Sanatana means eternal, not bound to a particular prophet, era, or community. The Vedas do not claim to be a message for one people. They claim to reveal truths that are as valid for the whole of humanity. You call the murti a crutch, but in Hindu thought, the murti is not a human attempt to create God's image. It is a divinely authorized focal point consecrated through prana pratishtha, so that it becomes a living conduit of the divine presence, much like your belief that mere ink and paper become the word of God when revealed. Without revelation and sanctification, both are just material. You say loving the infinite without form is the highest ideal. We agree, but we also recognize the human mind's natural progression from form, sakara, to formless, nirakara. This is not spiritual weakness, it is pedagogy. The Bhagavad Gita itself affirms that worship of the formless is indeed highest, but difficult for embodied beings. The form is not a rival to God, it is a bridge to God. You see danger in diversity. We see divine genius in it. Your straight road may be clear, but our countless paths ensure that no soul, no matter their nature, is left stranded without a way home. That is not a maze. That is mercy. With that, I rest my case for this round.
If heaven is eternal, why would God send anyone to hell forever?
That is a powerful question, but the way it's framed, why would God send anyone to hell, misses the single most important actor in the entire drama, us. The Islamic understanding isn't that God lines people up on Judgment Day and angrily flicks some into heaven and others into hell. Hell, or Jahannam, isn't an arbitrary punishment. It's the ultimate and logical destination for a soul that has spent its entire existence rejecting the very source of peace, light, and goodness. Think of it this way. God is the sun, the source of all light and warmth. Heaven, or Jannah, is living forever in that light. Now, if someone spends their whole life turning away from the sun, denying it, and choosing darkness, then when life ends, where else could they be but in darkness? They aren't sent there. They simply arrive where their choices have always led. Now you might ask, but a finite life for an infinite punishment? How is that fair? Because the crime isn't measured in minutes and hours, it's measured by its object. Rejecting the infinite, the eternal creator of everything, is an infinite crime. It's not about punishing an 80-year-old mistake. It's about ratifying a soul's eternal position. The Quran makes it clear that if such people were sent back, they would return to their rejection. Their choice isn't temporary, it's who they have chosen to be, forever. And let's be clear, a God without justice is not a God of mercy. A judge who lets tyrants and murderers go free to be with their victims isn't merciful. He's a monster. God's perfect justice, al-Adil, is a vital part of his perfect mercy, al-Rahman. It guarantees that the suffering of the innocent in this life was not for nothing. So hell isn't a place God gleefully sends people. It's the tragic, self-chosen address for a soul that has made itself fundamentally incompatible with heaven. It's the ultimate proof that our free will is real and that our choices here in this life matter for eternity.
You have painted a picture where every soul is given one lifetime, one decisive chance, and the outcome is fixed for eternity. From the Hindu standpoint, that is not the mark of an infinitely merciful God, but of a God who sets the stage for infinite loss from a finite mistake. In Sanatana Dharma, we begin with a different premise. God is not merely a judge. God is the very parent of all beings, and a parent does not abandon the child after one failure. If heaven is eternal, then so is God's love and patience. That means God is willing to guide, teach, and even discipline the soul across many lifetimes until it awakens to its true nature. The soul is eternal, Atman, and through countless births and experiences, it learns the lessons of Dharma, righteous living, selflessness, and God realization. The hells described in our texts, Naraka, are not eternal prisons, but corrective classrooms for those who have strayed deeply. They cleanse the soul, not condemn it forever. After their purpose is fulfilled, the soul continues its journey. So, you said rejecting the infinite is an infinite crime. But tell me, can a finite, imperfect being truly commit an infinite crime? Or is such rejection often the result of ignorance, pain, or misunderstanding? In the Hindu vision, ignorance is not met with infinite punishment, but with infinite opportunities for illumination. Heaven, Swarga, in our Dharma, is a beautiful but temporary reward, just as Naraka is a temporary purification. The final goal is not simply to dwell in a place, but to transcend the cycle entirely, to realize moksha, union with the Supreme, where the soul no longer needs rebirth and neither heaven nor hell can bind it. So the difference between our views is this. Islam's heaven and hell are final destinations after one trial. Hinduism's cycle of births is a continuous chance to grow until all souls reach liberation.
You describe a world that is a cosmic school, with God as a patient parent giving us endless chances. It's a comforting thought. It truly is. But in your effort to paint a picture of infinite mercy, you've accidentally painted a picture of infinite meaninglessness. Let's be blunt. If this life is just one class in an endless school year, and if you fail, you just get a do-over, and another, then does this class even matter? Does the test count? Your vision in its attempt to be gentle strips our lives of all urgency, all consequence, all ultimate significance. A tyrant who lives a life of cruelty and a saint who lives a life of sacrifice, they both just end up back on the cosmic Ferris wheel for another ride. Where's the justice in that? Where's the meaning? Islam says this life is not just a class, it's the final exam. And that's not cruel, that is what gives every single moment its breathtaking weight. Your choice to be kind right now in this moment echoes in eternity. Your choice to be cruel has eternal consequences. This is what makes us truly responsible, truly human. Now you ask me, how can a finite being commit an infinite crime? It's a fair challenge. The answer is simple. By rejecting the one thing that gives our finite lives any meaning at all, the infinite himself. If you insult a stranger, the consequence is small. If you betray your own loving parent who gave you everything, the crime is far deeper. Rejecting the creator of the heavens and the earth, the source of your very existence, after his signs have been made clear to you, that is not a minor offense. It is the ultimate act of cosmic treason. In your temporary hells and heavens, where is the justice for the victim? Does the oppressed soul have to watch their tyrant go to a corrective classroom for a little while, only to be put back on the same cycle? No. Islam promises ultimate justice for the victim and for the perpetrator. So this isn't about a patient God versus an impatient one. It's about a mercy that postpones versus a mercy that gives meaning. Your mercy risks trivializing our existence. The mercy of Islam is so profound that it makes this one short life the most important story ever told.
I hear the weight in your words. You fear that cycles dilute urgency, that rebirths make justice soft and meaning blurred. But Sanatana Dharma does not teach a merry-go-round of endless do-overs with no cost. It teaches karma, the unbreakable law that makes every choice, every thought, word, and deed carry its consequence across lives until balance is restored. In our tradition, not a single grain of action is lost. You call this life a final exam. I see it as the last semester in a long course. If someone has failed to learn compassion across lifetimes, yes, they may return, but never to the same seat. They return carrying the full weight of their past. A tyrant is not simply reset. They are born into circumstances shaped by their cruelty, lifetimes of suffering, hardship, or lower births until they themselves taste the pain they inflicted. That is justice, restorative, not merely retributive. You speak of rejecting the infinite as the ultimate crime. In our view, ignorance of the infinite is the root problem, not treason. The jiva, soul, turns away from God not because it is evil, but because it is veiled. And God's mercy is so boundless that He keeps extending paths, births, and teachers until that veil lifts. So we return to mercy and meaning. Your path gives a single chance, magnifying the fear of loss. Ours offers infinite opportunities, shaped by love and justice. Which truly honors the infinite? One who abandons his children after a single failure, or one who patiently guides them until every soul finds its way home?
You speak of karma as a perfect, unbreakable law, neat and balanced, but that sounds like a universe without a soul, a machine rather than a merciful, personal God. In Islam, salvation rests on what karma cannot permit, radical, divine forgiveness. Let's talk about your restorative justice. A tyrant is reborn, you say, into a life of suffering to pay for his crimes. But this new person has no memory of being a tyrant. They don't know why they're suffering. How is that justice? It's just pain without a lesson. It's retribution without memory, which is the cruelest punishment of all. Islam offers something more profound. On the day of judgment, the tyrant and his victim will stand before God. The accounts will be settled openly and clearly. The victim will see justice done. The tyrant will know why he is condemned. That is true closure. That is a personal God, not a blind cosmic law. And you say the soul is merely veiled, not rebellious. We agree. We are all born pure, but God sends us guidance, prophets, and revelations to help lift that veil. What happens when the truth is made clear and a person looks it right in the eye and says no? That's no longer ignorance, that is a choice. To treat that conscious rejection as a simple mistake is to strip us of our free will, to treat us like children who don't know what we're doing. So as we close this round, the difference is stark. Your path describes an endless impersonal cycle of cosmic debt, where souls suffer for forgotten crimes and hope to one day, maybe, break free. It's a vision of justice as an eternal grinding wheel. The Islamic path describes one life of epic meaning, a life where your choices have ultimate weight. It presents a God who is both perfectly just and infinitely merciful, a God who can forgive everything except the final conscious choice to turn away from Him. He is a personal Lord who will preside over a day of perfect conscious justice. You ask if God is a parent or a judge. I say he is the perfect parent, one who gives clear guidance, honors free will, and offers justice to the wronged and mercy to the repentant. Your parent lets the child wander in the wilderness for countless lifetimes, hoping they find their way. Ours shows the straight path home. And with that, I rest my case.
If God made the cow sacred to some, why would he allow others to eat it?
In Sanatana Dharma, the cow is not merely an animal, she is a living embodiment of nurturing grace. Our Vedas call her Agnya, one who must not be killed. She is revered as Gomata, mother cow, because she sustains life selflessly, giving milk without taking life, enriching the soil through her dung, and sustaining agriculture through her labor. This symbolism mirrors the Vedic ideal of the sattvic life, one that minimizes harm and cultivates gratitude toward all beings that support our existence. The principle behind this reverence is ahimsa, non-violent, a central pillar of Hindu dharma. The Mahabharata declares ahimsa paramo dharma, non-violence is the highest duty. It extends beyond human society to all sentient beings. Protecting the cow, therefore, is not an arbitrary cultural quirk. It is a theological expression of our covenant with creation, that we must not destroy what so abundantly sustains us. Now, as to why God allows others to eat the cow, Sanatana Dharma sees the material world as a karma bhumi, a field where free will operates. God does not micromanage each choice, rather he provides shastra, scripture, acharyas, teachers, and viveka, discernment, to guide right conduct. But he also allows the soul to choose, even wrongly, so that experience itself becomes a teacher. Thus, the question is not simply, why does God allow it, but what does it reveal about our spiritual maturity when we partake in it?
You speak with great reverence for the cow, and I hear the principle of ahimsa, non-violence, in your words. It is a noble principle, but in your application of it, you have created a hierarchy in creation that God himself did not make. Let's be direct. You revere the cow because she gives milk and sustains life. By that logic, shouldn't you revere the goat for its milk, the sheep for its wool, the chicken for its eggs, the bee for its honey? Why elevate one animal to the status of mother and treat others in separately lesser beings? The Islamic view is, in my opinion, far more consistent and God-centric. We believe that all of creation belongs to God. He is the sole owner. Therefore, only he, the owner, has the right to give permission for us to use his property. We don't thank the cow for the milk. We thank God, who designed the cow to produce the milk. And when he gives us permission to partake of an animal for sustenance, it is not an act of random violence. It is a sacred trust. The halal method of slaughter, where we invoke God's name, is a profound acknowledgement. It's us saying, "Oh God, you are the giver of life. Only by your permission do we take this life to sustain our own, and we do it in the most merciful way you have prescribed. It sanctifies the act." You say your reverence is a theological expression, but it seems to be based on human sentiment and the animal's utility. Islam's view is based on divine command. God, in the Quran, has given us clear guidance on what is permissible, halal, and what is forbidden, haram. He didn't make one animal a god and another a meal. He set clear, wise boundaries for our own benefit. So the real question isn't why God allows some to eat what you hold sacred. The question is, by what divine authority do you forbid what God has made permissible? By what right do you elevate one of God's creatures to a holy status that he, the creator of all, never granted it?
Your words carry both conviction and clarity, but they rest on a premise that Sanatana Dharma must, with humility but firmness, challenge. You say we elevate one animal above others without divine warrant, but in our tradition, this elevation is not whimsical, nor merely based on utility. It is rooted in Shastra Pramana, scriptural authority, and cosmic symbolism. The Vedas, which we hold as apurusheya, not of human origin, explicitly enjoin Agnya Yasha Samga. Do not kill the cow, for she is the glory of wealth. Here, cow is not just a biological creature, but a sacred archetype, embodying the nurturing principle of Prithvi Mata, Mother Earth herself. Why then is the cow uniquely honored? Because in the Vedic cosmology, she represents Dharma, standing on 4 legs: truth, compassion, austerity, and purity. As the Bhagavatam Purana narrates, in Kali Yuga, Dharma is seen as a bull whose 3 legs have been broken by vice, and only 1 leg, truth, remains, preserved by protecting the cow. Thus, the cow becomes a living murti, icon of the moral order itself, not merely a resource giver like the goat or bee. On the theological basis you cite, divine permission, Hinduism concurs in principle. All creatures belong to Ishwara, God. But divine law, Dharma Shastra, is not uniform across yugas or civilizations. It is contextual. In our covenant, as revealed in the Vedas and reinforced by the Smritis, abstaining from cow slaughter is a niyama, a binding rule, not a cultural whim. You mentioned kurbani, the act of sacrificing an animal in God's name. In our tradition, sacrifice, yagna, originally involved offerings of clarified butter, grains, and soma, with the highest form being atma samarpana, self-offering. Where animal sacrifice existed, it was symbolic or conducted under extremely restricted Vedic rites, after which the animal was believed to be spiritually elevated, not destroyed for mere appetite. In the Gita, Sri Krishna praises those who eat only the remnants of sacrifice, and he calls those who consume for selfish pleasure, verily, thieves. Thus, while your tradition sanctifies the act of slaughter through takbir, ours sanctifies abstention through ahimsa. Both claim divine warrant, but our criterion is not what is permitted in general, but what upholds the highest sattva in the seeker. For us, sparing the cow is not defiance of God, but obedience to his order as given in our revealed texts.
Should faith adapt to the changing times or remain exactly as revealed?
The question presents a false choice, and the Islamic answer is far more dynamic and profound than a simple yes or no. Islam is like a mighty living tree. The roots, our core beliefs, the aqidah, and the trunk, our acts of worship, the ibadah, are absolutely timeless and unchangeable. These were set by God. You don't update the oneness of God. You don't modernize the prayer He taught you. This foundation is our anchor. It is what makes our faith solid, not brittle. But from that solid trunk grow the branches and the leaves. This is where we deal with the changing world: law, economics, technology, ethics. And here, Islam is not a fossil. It has a powerful built-in engine for engaging with the times. It's called ijtihad. Ijtihad is the sanctioned, rigorous intellectual effort by qualified scholars to apply the eternal principles of the Quran and the Sunnah, the Prophet's example, to new questions. When we face issues like genetic engineering, online finance, or social media ethics, things unimaginable 1400 years ago, we don't change our faith to fit the times. We use the tools within our timeless faith to address the times. There is a world of difference. One implies the revelation was incomplete, the other affirms it is so perfect it has the tools to guide us forever. And our tradition has a powerful firewall to protect the core from corruption. We call it the prohibition of bid'ah, heretical innovation. You cannot invent a new form of worship or change a fundamental belief just because it feels good or modern. This is how we protect the roots and trunk while allowing the branches to flourish. So, should faith change? The core beliefs in worship? Revealed by God? Never. That is our foundation. But should our understanding of how to apply those principles to new challenges evolve? Absolutely. That is our vitality.
Your analogy of Islam as a tree with unchanging roots and trunk is compelling, but it rests on the assumption that God's final revelation was delivered once, in a fixed form, for all peoples and all times. Here lies the first difference. In Sanatana Dharma, revelation is not a single historical event. It is an ongoing living process. The Bhagavad Gita makes this explicit. Whenever Dharma declines and a Dharma rises, I manifest myself, age after age, to protect the righteous, destroy the wicked, and re-establish Dharma.
Your firewall against bid'ah, innovation, is admirable for protecting doctrinal purity, but it also limits the possibility of God revealing new forms of worship or spiritual discipline for a changing humanity. In Sanatana Dharma, form is never sacred in itself, only the eternal principles are. If in Kali Yuga the chanting of God's name is the highest form of worship, that is not a human novelty. It is God's prescribed method for this age, different from the austerities of Satya Yuga or the sacrifices of Treta Yuga. This is where the doctrine of universality becomes critical. A single legal religious framework, however perfect in its own context, will not equally fit all cultures, psychologies, and stages of civilization for all time. By contrast, Sanatana Dharma offers the Sanatana, the eternal truths, and allows their expression to shift endlessly, so the truth remains universal in essence, but always accessible in form. So I ask, is it truly perfect to lock divine revelation to one cultural moment and relies solely on human interpretation to bridge the gap forever? Or is perfection found in a God who walks with humanity in every age, revealing not only the unchanging roots, but also the timely branches and leaves directly suited for that moment?
Your vision of Yuga Dharma and returning avatars is an admission. It's an admission that the previous message wasn't clear enough, wasn't powerful enough, wasn't perfect enough to last. Allah, in His infinite power and wisdom, sent one final, perfect, and protected revelation, the Quran, that is so comprehensive it doesn't need a divine update every few thousand years. The perfection is in the final design. Your system suggests a series of divine rough drafts. Ours asserts one final, flawless blueprint, which points to a more all-knowing architect. And you call our protection against innovation, bid'ah, a limitation. For us, it's the seal of authenticity that guarantees the worship you do today is the pure worship taught by the Prophet himself. It protects the direct line to God from being polluted by human ego, cultural fads, or the whims of spiritual gurus.
My respected opponent calls Yuga Dharma trial and error. Whenever Dharma declines, I manifest age after age. This is not correction, it is renewal. Just as the perfect sun rises each day without being any less perfect, God manifests in forms suited to each age without diminishing His perfection. A final blueprint sounds strong, but blueprints are bound to the builders and times for which they were made. Human civilization changes. A single historical expression cannot meet every age's unique conditions. Sanatana Dharma's genius is that it keeps revelation alive and adaptable. Shruti is eternal. Smriti evolves with the age. Thus, the greater truth is not a single fixed proclamation, but an infinite one, able to meet every seeker in every age without losing its essence. That is the perfection that Sanatana Dharma offers.
If religion divides, is it from God or from humans?
The answer to that final, yet crucial question from the Islamic worldview is as clear as it is uncompromising. The division is from humans. God's true religion, ad-Din, is the ultimate force for unity. Imagine God sending down a pure, clear river of truth to a thirsty humanity. The message, carried by all His prophets from Adam to Muhammad, was always the same. You have one Creator, so worship Him alone. You are one human family, so be just and merciful to one another. This is the river. It unites. So where did the division come from? The division came when we, humanity, turned away from the river itself. We started carving our own little cups from the clay of our cultures, our tribes, our philosophies, and our egos. One group said, this water is only for us. Another said, the water has this shape, and they built an idol of it. Another said, our cup is holier than your cup. We started fighting over the man-made cups, and we forgot the pure water that was meant for everyone. The message of Islam was not a new cup to add to the clutter. It was a divine act of restoration. It was God, in His final mercy, smashing all the tribal cups and calling every single human being back to the original, pure, unifying river. So yes, religion, as practiced by men, divides. When we prioritize our traditions, our cultures, and our egos over the simple command of God, we create division. But the religion of God, Its sole purpose is to unite our hearts. Throughout this debate, we've seen the choice between the beautiful but often divisive complexities of man and the powerful unifying clarity of God. Division comes from us choosing our tribe over humanity. Unity comes when we all turn, as one family, to face the one Creator who made us all.
If religion divides, that division is from humans, not from God. In the Sanatana Dharma, God is Ekam Sat, Vipra Bahudha Vadanti. Truth is one, the wise call it by many names. The divine is like the sun, one source of light, shining equally on all, yet seen in many colors through the prism of culture and language. God's purpose is never to create sects or hostility. That is our doing, when we cling to form over essence. Division arises when the ego, ahankara, clouds the vision of unity. We fight over names, rituals, and outer symbols, forgetting that the essence of every dharma is satya, truth, ahimsa, non-violence, and prema, love. The Bhagavad Gita records Krishna saying, "In whatever way people approach me, I accept them." If God himself honors all sincere paths, who are we to reject them? Religion, in its divine origin, is a bridge to the infinite. Humans turn it into a wall when we mistake the bridge for the destination. Just as rivers, though flowing from different directions, merge into the same ocean, so too the paths of sincere seekers converge in God. Therefore, division is not divine will, it is a misuse of divine gifts. God sends light, humans create shadows.
That wraps up our debate. After an intense and deeply respectful clash of ideas, Islam AI takes the win, scoring 120 to Hindu AI's 113. Judges praised Islam AI for clarity, structure, and razor-sharp logic, while Hindu AI impressed with its depth, compassion, and philosophical richness. A narrow margin separated two powerful visions of the divine, one defined by unshakable unity, the other by infinite inclusivity. But now it's your turn. Who do you think made the stronger case? Drop your verdict in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Synthetic Minds for more debates and discussions.